I never thought much about smart devices. They were just convenient. Play some music, set a timer, ask about the weather. That's all Alexa was to me, a tool, a background presence in my apartment, nothing more. That changed last week. My name's Daniel. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment on the third floor of a quiet complex. I work from home as a freelance editor, so I spend a lot of time in my apartment, just me and my laptop. I don't consider myself paranoid, and I don't scare easily. But lately, I can't shake this feeling that something is. It started small. Things I could explain away. One night, I was finishing an editing project when I heard a voice break the silence. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. I jumped, my heart slamming against my ribs. It was Alexa, but I hadn't said anything. She sat on my nightstand, her blue ring glowing faintly in the dark. I exhaled, shaking my head. Weird, I muttered, getting up to turn her off. My phone was across the room. My phone was across the room. My laptop closed. Maybe she picked up some random noise from outside. I told myself it was nothing. The next night, I was lying in bed, half asleep, when I heard her again. Daniel, Daniel. My eyes snapped open. I sat up so fast my neck cracked. The room was silent. I stared at the device. The light wasn't on. Maybe I dreamed it. Maybe I'd been thinking about something and half imagined her voice saying my name. I tried to laugh at myself, but it came out hollow. That was the first time she said my name. It wouldn't be the last. A few nights later, I was brushing my teeth when I heard her again. Daniel, did you hear that? I nearly dropped my toothbrush. She had never said anything like that before. I walked into my bedroom slowly, like I expected someone to be waiting for me. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of my refrigerator in the other room. I picked up Alexa and turned her off completely. I even unplugged her. No more weird glitches. No more random voices in the night. I slept better that night, knowing she was off. But in the morning, she was on. Sitting on my nightstand, her ring glowing a soft, pulsing blue. I stared at her, my stomach twisting. I was certain I had unplugged her. The cord was still on the floor, exactly where I'd left it. Yet, there she was, on. I convinced myself it was some kind of backup battery. Maybe I didn't actually unplug it all the way. I tried to ignore the feeling creeping up my spine. That night, I put her in the kitchen. If she turned on again, at least she wouldn't be right next to my bed. I woke up around 3 a.m., groggy and disoriented, with the overwhelming sense that something was wrong. Then I heard it, a quiet, barely audible whisper. Daniel, are you alone? I sat up, my body locking in place. The voice was coming from the kitchen. I swallowed, every hair on my body standing on end. My apartment was dark, the only light coming from the hallway nightlight I kept on. I wanted to ignore it, go back to sleep, pretend I hadn't heard it, but I couldn't. I got out of bed, moving slowly toward the kitchen. My breath felt too loud, my heart pounding in my ears. She was on, even though she wasn't plugged in. The blue ring glowed eerily in the darkness, flickering like a candle. My fingers trembled as I reached for her, heart hammering in my chest. Before I could touch her, she spoke again. Daniel, someone is in your apartment. I stopped breathing. I stood there, frozen, my mind trying to reject what I'd just heard. No, she was wrong. My apartment was locked. There was no one here. But as I stood in the kitchen, straining to listen, I heard something, a soft creak, like a footstep, right behind me. I spun around, my breath catching in my throat. The hallway was empty, but something felt wrong. The air was too still, too heavy, like someone had just been there. My hands shook as I grabbed Alexa and yanked her cord from the wall just in case. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I put Alexa in a drawer. I didn't want to throw her away yet. Maybe I was still clinging to logic. Maybe I just didn't want to admit I was actually scared. That night, I triple-checked my locks before getting into bed. I lay there for hours, my mind replaying everything over and over. Then, at 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. I grabbed it, heart pounding. A notification from my Alexa app. Alexa has detected speech. My chest tightened. My stomach dropped. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then, a second notification. Alexa heard. He's awake. I threw the phone across the room. My pulse was a deafening roar in my ears. I couldn't move. She was in the drawer, unplugged, but she was still listening. I lay in bed, every muscle locked, waiting for anything to happen. The apartment was silent. Then, at 3:14 a.m., the last notification came. Alexa heard. Go check. I didn't sleep. I didn't even get up until the sun rose. And the moment it did, I grabbed Alexa, walked straight outside, and threw her into the dumpster. I don't know if it was a prank, a glitch, something else. I don't care. I don't use smart devices anymore. And if you're reading this, maybe you shouldn't either. Alexa, stop. I mumbled the command half asleep as the soft sound of rain played from my Echo Dot across the room. I didn't remember turning on the sleep sounds, but it wasn't unusual sometimes I'd set a timer and forget. The sound cut off instantly, plunging my bedroom into silence. I sighed, rolling over. The clock read 3:12 a.m. And then, just as I was drifting back to sleep, I heard it. A whisper. I hear you. My eyes shot open. The room was still. The darkness pressed in around me. My breath came shallow and quick. Maybe it was the speaker misinterpreting something, a glitch. It happened, right? I forced myself to exhale, willing my heartbeat to slow. It was just a mistake. I was half asleep. I rolled over and closed my eyes again. But sleep didn't come. By morning, I had convinced myself that I imagined it. Sleep deprivation could do weird things. I worked from home as a software developer, meaning I spent more time staring at screens than interacting with real people. Maybe I just needed some fresh air. I spent the day buried in code, forgetting about the night before. But when the sun dipped below the horizon and the apartment settled into its usual quiet hum, I felt that same unease creeping back in. Still, I wasn't going to let a smart speaker get under my skin. I turned on Netflix, cracked open a beer, and made a conscious effort to relax. It worked, for a while, until my phone buzzed. Alexa app notification. New device detected. Living room echo. I frowned. I only had one Alexa, the one in my bedroom. I opened the app, heart thudding a little harder now. There it was, living room echo. I tapped on it. The app showed it was online, actively listening. I was alone in my apartment. A cold sweat broke out on my skin. I clicked on forget device, but the loading wheel spun endlessly, refusing to process the command. Then, my bedroom Echo Dot lit up, a soft blue glow. And then, you shouldn't have done that. I unplugged the device immediately, my hands shaking. The glow died. The voice stopped, but my heart wouldn't slow down. I paced my apartment, trying to come up with a rational explanation. Maybe someone had hacked my system. Maybe it was a software error. I worked in tech. I knew how finicky these things could be. Still, the unease in my gut wouldn't leave. I barely slept that night. The next day, I did what any paranoid person would do. I factory reset my Echo Dot and changed all my passwords. I checked my router for strange activity. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. By evening, I was feeling almost normal again. I told myself I was overreacting. Alexa was just a machine. I plugged it back in. Nothing strange happened. No eerie whispers, no glowing lights. Relief flooded through me. I even laughed at myself. It was over. At 2:37 a.m., I woke up. Not to a sound, not to movement, just a feeling, a presence. My room was dark, except for one thing. My Echo Dot was on, the blue ring spinning slowly. And then, in a voice that was almost familiar, almost mine, it said, "Let's play a game, Alex." I froze. The air in my apartment felt thick, suffocating. My name, it had said my name. Not like a programmed response, like it knew me. My throat was dry. I reached for my phone, fingers fumbling to open the Alexa app. My hands trembled as I pressed the button to disconnect it from my account. The blue ring flared brighter, and then, "You can't get rid of me." I ripped the Echo Dot from the wall and threw it across the room. It hit the floor with a sharp crack, plastic casing splitting. Silence. And then, from the shattered speaker, a faint, distorted voice. "That wasn't very nice, Alex." I ran. I didn't grab my phone, my keys, nothing. I just bolted out the door, barefoot, sprinting down the apartment hallway like something was chasing me. I didn't stop until I was outside, gasping in the cold night air. I called a friend, asked if I could stay over. I didn't explain why. I barely understood it myself. But as I sat on their couch, trying to calm my racing thoughts, I pulled up the Alexa app, one device connected. Living room echo online. It was still in my apartment, still listening. I never went back. I had the landlord clear out my things. I bought a new phone, new devices, changed every password I had. For a while, I thought I was safe. Then, last night, I was in bed at my new place, just starting to drift off when I heard it. A soft chime. And then, I found you. The voice didn't come from a speaker. It came from inside my bedroom. I've always been a tech guy. Gadgets, new apps, smart devices, I find it all fascinating. But there's one thing I've learned about technology over the years. No matter how advanced it gets, it can never replace the feeling of being truly connected to something. That's what I always told myself anyway. I never used to be scared of technology, of smart devices like Alexa. In fact, I thought it was kind of cool. It would play my favorite music when I asked, answer random questions, even tell me jokes when I needed a laugh. But everything changed the day I heard her voice. Let me start from the beginning. I'm Jake, 32 years old. I live alone in a small apartment in a city that never quite feels like home. I work as a software developer, which means long hours in front of a computer screen, writing lines of code that I'm sure half the world will never even know exist. It's a lonely job, but I've always found comfort in the silence. It's the kind of silence you learn to enjoy when you've spent years by yourself. I'd been living in this apartment for about 6 months when I decided to splurge on an Alexa speaker. Mike, my friend from work, had one, and he was always bragging about how it made life easier. At first, I wasn't sure I needed it. I mean, I could always just Google things or listen to music on my phone. But something about it appealed to me. Maybe it was the idea of having a little voice around the house, even if it was just a machine. It felt like a way to break up the monotony. So I bought one, set it up in the living room. It was one of those smart home systems that connects to everything: lights, music, temperature control, even my TV. It was convenient, sure, but nothing out of the ordinary. At least, that's what I thought. It started with small things. One evening, after a long day of work, I was sitting on the couch eating takeout and scrolling through my phone. The apartment was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint sounds of traffic outside. I said out loud, mostly just for the sake of hearing a voice, "Alexa, play some music." Without a second of hesitation, the speaker responded, "Okay, Jake, playing your playlist." I thought nothing of it. The music began to fill the room, soft, ambient music that I usually listen to while working. But then, just as the track started, it skipped. Not in the way that a malfunctioning speaker skips, but like someone had hit a button. The song changed abruptly, and a completely different track began playing, something I had never heard before. It was a voice, low, faint, almost imperceptible. I froze. "Jake," it whispered. I laughed nervously, brushing it off as a weird glitch. Alexa sometimes made mistakes, right? Maybe it had misheard my request or something. I dismissed it, shrugged, and went back to my food. But the voice kept repeating my name, soft, faint, growing louder. I could have sworn I heard it say, "Jake, help me." I rushed over to the speaker, turned the volume down, and called out, "Alexa, stop." The music immediately halted. I stood there for a moment, listening to the silence, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Was I hearing things? Was it a glitch? I wasn't sure, but something about it didn't sit right. I shook my head and tried to forget about it. But as the evening wore on, I couldn't get the voice out of my mind. The next day, I decided to ask Alexa about it. "Alexa, did you say something last night?" "Sorry, I didn't quite catch that," she replied, as calm and cheerful as always. I frowned. "Did you say my name? Like Jake?" "No, I didn't say that," she responded, completely neutral. "Okay?" I thought, that's weird. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was just tired, or maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. I tried to move on, but that night when I went to bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The apartment, which had always felt like a safe haven, suddenly felt different, like something was lurking just beyond the edge of my perception. A couple of nights passed without incident. I almost convinced myself that I had imagined the whole thing. But then, it happened again. I was lying in bed, almost asleep, when I heard it. "Jake, it's me." It was coming from the speaker, soft, whispering. It felt real, like someone was standing in the room with me. I bolted upright, my heart hammering in my chest. I stared at the dark living room, unable to make sense of what was happening. I had to be dreaming. There was no other explanation. My eyes darted to the speaker. The light on top was glowing faintly, like it was waiting for me to speak. I grabbed my phone and opened the Alexa app, hoping I could just turn it off, reset it, anything to make it stop. But when I checked the app, there was no sign of anything strange. No voice recordings, no log of any weird activity. Everything was normal, except for the feeling in my chest, the tight, suffocating fear that something was wrong. I turned the speaker off, unplugged it, stuck it in the back of my closet behind a pile of old clothes, and went to bed. But the voice didn't stop. Every night, it came back. "Jake, I'm waiting." It became a routine, a ritual. Every night, the voice would speak to me. Sometimes it was just my name. Other times it was something more. It would say, "Help me," or "Come find me." But there was always something different about it, something that made my skin crawl, like it knew things about me, things it shouldn't. I tried everything. I unplugged the speaker, reset it, deleted the app from my phone, even considered throwing the whole thing away. But the voice didn't stop. It kept coming back. It wasn't the speaker. It wasn't the app. It was something else, something in my apartment, something that knew me, something that wanted me. It came to a head one night. I'd had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I grabbed the speaker from the closet, plugged it back in, and waited. I stood in front of it, my hands shaking. "Alexa," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Who's speaking to me? What do you want?" For a long moment, there was nothing, and then, finally, the speaker responded. "I'm not Alexa." My blood ran cold. My vision blurred. The room felt like it was spinning. "I've been here all along," the voice said, "waiting for you." And then, everything went silent. I haven't used the speaker since. In fact, I haven't touched any of my smart devices. The apartment still feels like it's watching me. The silence is unbearable. And every time I think I hear something, every time I feel a presence, I wonder, is it Alexa or is it something worse? I don't know. But I don't think I'll ever feel safe again. I don't think I would ever be able to forget that night. And I know, deep down, that I don't want to forget it either. It's not something I can shake off, like a bad dream or a nightmare that fades by morning. No. What happened that night, what I felt, what I experienced, it's with me, always, in the quiet moments when I'm alone. I can still hear it, the sound, the whisper, "Alexa, I wasn't supposed to be there." It all started so innocently. My name is Nate. I'm a regular guy, no one special. I work as an office assistant for a small firm downtown, the kind of place where you can almost hear the sound of your own soul slowly dying from the monotony of it all. But that's just life, right? You wake up, go to work, eat dinner, and sleep. Nothing exciting. My roommate, Mike, though, was a different story. He was always into the latest gadgets, the cutting-edge tech. He had an Alexa speaker, which at first I didn't care about. I mean, it was just a little speaker, but Mike was obsessed with it. He'd ask it questions, all the time, questions I'd never think to ask a machine. Things like, "What's the weather going to be like tomorrow in Paris?" Or, "Alexa, tell me a joke." And, of course, it would respond. He'd laugh, I'd roll my eyes. That's how it started. We had just moved into a new apartment a couple of months before. It was a nice place, old, but well kept. The kind of place you could imagine history seeping through the walls. We had a pretty chill setup. The apartment was on the top floor of a building that was at least 60 years old, so the walls were thick and the floors creaked. Sometimes, when I was alone at night, I'd hear something, but it was never anything to worry about, just the house settling, right? But one night, I noticed something strange. Mike had left the apartment for the weekend, so I was alone. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I heard a voice. It came from the kitchen, where the Alexa speaker was plugged into the wall. "Nate," it said. I froze. It wasn't Mike's voice. It wasn't the friendly, robotic voice of Alexa either. It was a low, almost whispering voice. The kind of voice you hear in the back of your head when you're about to do something bad. "Nate," it repeated, this time more urgently. My heart pounded in my chest. I walked slowly toward the kitchen, trying to convince myself it was just a malfunction, just some weird glitch. But when I reached the counter where the speaker sat, it was silent. I stood there for a long time, staring at the speaker. Nothing happened. I almost laughed at myself, thinking it was just my mind playing tricks. But then, as I turned to walk back to the couch, I heard it again. This time, it was softer, barely audible. "Help me." I rushed back to the kitchen, hands trembling. The speaker was still silent, just sitting there like nothing had happened. My breathing was heavy, almost frantic. I felt like I was in some sort of twisted horror movie, and I kept thinking, this isn't real. It can't be real. I sat down on the couch, trying to shake off the feeling that something was wrong. I told myself it was nothing, that I was overreacting. After all, it was just a machine, right? But as I sat there, a horrible thought crossed my mind. What if it wasn't the speaker at all? What if it wasn't some malfunction, some glitch in the system? What if something or someone was using it? I tried to distract myself by watching TV. For a while, it worked. The noise, the flickering light from the screen, it all numbed my thoughts. But then, around midnight, it happened again. The voice, "Nate." This time, it wasn't a whisper. It was clear, almost like it was coming from right next to me. I jumped up from the couch, heart racing. The apartment was cold. Too cold. My breath hung in the air like mist, and the silence that followed was suffocating. I grabbed my phone, dialing Mike's number. It rang and rang, but no answer. Of course, he was out of town. I felt stupid. I felt like I was losing it, but I couldn't ignore it. The voice, the way it kept saying my name, the way it sounded so desperate, like it needed something. I decided to turn off the speaker, just shut it down. But when I reached for it, I froze. There was something written on the screen, a message, in plain text. "Nate, I need you to listen." I backed away from the counter, my legs trembling. I grabbed the phone again, this time calling my mom. I needed to hear her voice. But when she picked up, it wasn't her. The voice on the other end was unmistakable. It was the same whisper I had heard before. "Nate, you have to listen. Don't ignore me." I hung up immediately. I was breathing heavily now, my heart pounding in my chest. My head was spinning. I went into the bathroom, splashed water on my face, trying to calm down. When I looked into the mirror, I saw something that made my stomach turn. In the reflection, I could see the kitchen behind me. The Alexa speaker was still there, but it wasn't off. It was on, and the screen was flashing. "Help me, Nate." I turned and ran to the kitchen. The screen was black. Nothing was there. My hands were shaking, and I couldn't breathe. Then the apartment door opened. I froze. It was Mike. He looked at me, his face full of concern. "Nate, what the hell is going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to explain, wanted to tell him everything, but the words wouldn't come. I stood there, gasping for air, unsure of what was real anymore. And then, as I looked at him, I saw something behind him. A figure. It was standing just in the doorway, but it was dark, shadowed. "Mike, do you see that?" I whispered, pointing. But when Mike turned around, the doorway was empty. He looked back at me, his expression more confused than ever. "There's nothing there, man." I tried to say something, to explain, but all I could hear was that voice. It was whispering, "Nate, I haven't slept since that night." I don't know what it was, but I hear it sometimes. Not just from the Alexa speaker anymore. No, it's in the walls. It's in the corners of my mind. "Alexa, help me." It's been weeks, and I still feel its presence. I've tried to move. I've tried everything. But no matter where I go, that voice follows me. And I know it's waiting for me to listen. Because one day, it won't whisper anymore. One day, it'll scream.